Okay, round two of the commission training. So we're going to start by doing first the sales order display portion, just to get that out of the way because it's fairly short. So when we go to the finance in Acumatica and go to vendor reports, we'll see that there are two different lookups that we're going to be importing in through Project Master into the database there. So one is a sales order display thing. The other one is the commission info. So let's do the sales order display first. And this automatically pulls up the sales orders that have been created so far this month. So we'll click on the Excel button, and that'll form our spreadsheet for us. Spin. All right, spreadsheet has been formed. We'll open our spreadsheet up by clicking on it. It shows up down here in the bottom. And once our spreadsheet opens, we'll format it. All right, here we go. So I'll enable editing, enable content, get rid of superfluous columns here, and I'm going to resize all these columns. And for this particular one, we don't have to do any more formatting, so I'm just going to do a Control-Shift down and select all the data that I want to import. Then you can either hit Control-C or right-click and copy. And then inside Project Master, you're going to want to go to the little commission button, which is the bottom left of the main form, and then click on the question mark on the top left, and that takes you into the invoice list form. And once you've got this on your clipboard, your display info, you just click on the Copy SO Info button, and shortly you will get a Done button saying, hey, I've imported all the info and done the update. If you get a button saying that your row count is off, that means you've got a comma somewhere in your data and you've got to go get rid of that comma. Okay, so now we've got that part done. So let's do the commissions. I'm going to not save that spreadsheet, don't need it. And I'll go back here and run the COM export lookup and click on Excel so that it pulls all that data into Excel. And this is for everything that invoices that were created for the current month, so August 1 to August 31st. And this might take a little while because it's quite a bit of data. All right, so here's our data in the spreadsheet. We'll open it up, and we're going to have to do some formatting on this spreadsheet. Okay, so we can enable editing. We will enable content, delete the header rows that are superfluous, and then I'm going to resize it just to make it a little easier to manage. Right now, we don't use columns S and T, so you can just delete those two columns so they don't get in your way. The first thing that we need to do is get rid of all the columns, or all the commas in the columns. So to do this, we're going to select column C and hold your control key down, select column E, and then select column P. And those are all of the text fields, the text columns that might have a comma in them. And then we'll hit our Control H for find and replace, and we'll find commas, and we'll replace them with a space. And there's 351 that it found, so we got rid of all of our commas there. The next step is to go into the numeric fields, which is G through J plus O, and we want to right-click on those, go to Format Cells, and we're going to format this as number and make sure that the Use 1000 separator is not checked. So 2 decimal places, number, no separator. And now that is formatted the way that we want. The last step that we're going to do on this before trying to import it is I'm going to do my Control-Shift down, go into Data and Sort, and I'm going to sort this by invoice, and then I'm going to sort it by sequence number, which is how it should come by default. But just to make sure that it's the correct way before we get started, it's worth the extra few seconds. All right, so now we just need to select the data. So we don't select the header row that has all of the header titles. we're just going to select the rows underneath and hit our control end, or I'm sorry, shift end down. So I've got everything selected there, and then I just right click and I hit copy. And then back in that invoice list form that we were in Project Master on the commission, from the commission form, we are going to click on the paste button. And that pastes in all of our invoices. And so now we have new invoices to process. So I'm going to sort them in descending numeric order so we can do the largest ones first. So you see our largest one's $11,000. So I select that row, and then I'm going to click on Autopilot. And what Autopilot does is it will automatically process the invoices as the invoices get completed. So as soon as an invoice loads, the first thing you want to do is click on Defaults. Defaults are going to color code, plus it's also going to use an algorithm to determine what it thinks the correct price is. And then it's going to highlight the prices in these three rows as yellow if they tie to the price that you have in your cost column. So the next step is just to make sure that all of the costing is correct and or update the costing if it's not correct. So GSA is a non-item line, so that should be 0. This matches all three of those, so this one looks correct. And then shipping, you'll notice shipping, it always has like the big red line all the way across it. Shipping, we just ignore it. It will always be 0. Okay, so once we're done with that, we click on Done. Then we hit Defaults. It loads a new one, hit Default. And so now you see this one says, the system says it should be $4,000 for this particular item. The PO cost that we used to order it was $4,000, and the rep cost was $6,500. So the rep is saying this is $6,500 for this, and our PO is actually $4,000. So we're going to go with the PO cost on this one. Training, this defaults to the $60 an hour. So you've got 24 at 90, so it's really 24 hours at $90 an hour with our $60 an hour burden cost, which is our cost for all labor, including training. This one looks good, so I'm going to click Done. Then I'm going to click on Defaults. When all three lines are highlighted across, that's a really good indicator that that's the accurate cost that you're looking for. So when I look at this and see that all these lines are highlighted as yellow, I just know this one's correct, so I click on Done. So now if there's a 0 here and these two lines are yellow, then I pretty much know that's correct. And since the last line is a shipping line, this whole order is complete as well. So I click Done. Well, everything's yellow, done. Yellow, done. Yellow and zeros, done. And for the most part, you can almost ignore everything and just pay attention to the colors, and you'll be correct about 99.5% of the time. You'll see how fast this goes. Okay, so this is a good example. We've got this projector at $539, and there's no PO cost. There's no system cost. The rep says it should be $434, which seems reasonable. And the reason for that is stock. So they're saying, hey, we have this one in stock, and it should be at $434. So I'm going to click on the little rep box, which will copy the rep's cost into the cost field once that line loses focus. So you see that 434 got copied over there. Now I'm going to click on Done. So that was a good example of making a change. So these, are all, if you look at them, they're yellows and zeros, which pretty much means that the system's getting the cost correct. So here's one which is sort of a judgment call. The system says it's $75. We ordered it for $75. The rep cost, the reason says Cynics, which basically, this means it was just copied in somewhere. The rep cost is $77, but if we're really buying this for $75, that's the cost we should be using. So we'll give them the benefit of the doubt and use that cost. All right, so all yellows were good. Yellows and zeros were good. All right, this one's another good example of one where the rep says it should be $239. The reason is Gilmore. I got no idea what that means, but the $239 seems reasonable since the unit price is $289. So I'm going to click on the rep box here and then click Done. All right, so yellows. So this one's close enough. Only a penny difference between them, so I'm not going to take time up to change those. You see how some of this is very, very tedious. You're just clicking buttons. The CAD drawings for this is for a residential team, that we have a cost on those at for 250 from those, and it just defaults to that. Okay, so now you notice we're getting into the negative ones. Okay, now this is where we've done credit memos. A lot of times these are to fix things like people are using miscellaneous lines which they're not supposed to. So Laura's team will go in and they'll fix those via credit memos. And for miscellaneous lines, always leave those set as 0, because when they come in and you see them on invoices, they should be set to 0. And if you leave them at 0 cost for the invoice and then 0 cost for the credit memo, it nets out to the same amount. So these are, okay, so ZSpace, this is a good example, really good example. ZSpace has two different things. You'll see ZSpace for training, and if there's training, then there's 0 cost on it. But expenses, which is what this one is, training expense, the cost equals the sale price. So we did a credit memo on this one for $121.76. So the cost should be $121.76. So the cost should always equal the unit price for ZSpace training expense. It should always be 0 for ZSpace training, but cost equals unit price for training expense. So that one's there. That's an admin fee that would have a 0. Pelican carry case. If you look at this, Jeff sold this. I don't know what the cost was on that. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this at 0. We probably would have charged it in at 0, so I'm going to leave it there, and Jeff can check it, because the reps will see this after we process this, and they can make the change if they need to. Miscellaneous, so I leave it at 0. Okay, so here's a projector. The system cost was that. So that's fine. So now, when you get done, when you're running autopilot and it gets done with all of the invoices, it'll leave you with this, which is, basically a blank page. And as you go back to here, you might see a couple of these up here, and these are just for like, it's kind of like bogus data. If you were to reprocess these, and they would still be on here, so there's something holding these up, but eventually they fall off the list. So ignore those. And this is the end of commissions, so thanks.